I will maintain my friend's and his family's anonymity in this narrative while I describe one of the most horrifying instances I have seen with my own eyes. This all happened during the course of 2014 to 2015 while I was in my B.Tech. None of the things I'm going to describe is fudged, and disbelievers can continue to make fun and continue in their lives. I don't care. But if you are even one sympathetic in nature, then try to feel the horror experienced by my friend's family, especially his young sister with whom everything happened. In 2014, I had everything figured out. I was pursuing my B.Tech, had a firm grip on my beliefs and scoffed at tales of the supernatural. Ghost stories, those were just for fun, told around campfires. But, as fate would have it, my neat, predictable world was about to turn upside down. It all started when I befriended a classmate, Rajan, who lived nearby. He was one of those rare people who effortlessly melded tradition with modernity. As we spent more time together, he introduced me to his family. They were great, the kind you'd call progressive, with a spacious house filled with contemporary artwork. His parents both held respectable jobs and believed in the value of education. Yet, they maintained deep cultural roots, often partaking in traditional customs and rituals. But the one who caught my attention the most was Rajan's younger sister, Riya. 12 years old, with a mop of curly hair and a penchant for mischief, she reminded me of my younger sibling. Every time I visited, she'd rush to greet me with a barrage of questions about college or some drawing she had crafted that day. So, when one evening I arrived and found the house engulfed in a strange silence, I felt a pang of unease. No Riya running to meet me, no chatter echoing through the hallways. Instead, Rajan led me to the sitting room, where his parents sat with solemn faces. Riya was there too, but not her usual vivacious self. She lay on the couch, looking drained and frail. Concerned, I moved closer. That's when I saw it, an unsightly mark on her forehead. It looked raw, as though someone had pressed a burning cigarette against her skin. Alarmed, I turned to Rajan, my eyes searching for answers. "It happens every month," he murmured, his voice filled with confusion and concern. "The mark appears, stays for a day or so, and then vanishes as if it never existed." His mother chimed in, her voice shaky. "It's not just the mark. Every time it appears, she gets sick and weak. And then there's the dream." Rajan shot his mother a warning look, as if to stop her from saying more, but she continued after every no-moon night. "Riya talks of this dream. In it, a shadowy man beckons her, telling her there's nothing left for her in this world." I tried to process this information, but my rational mind rebelled. There had to be a logical explanation. Maybe it was some skin condition. Perhaps the dream was just a child's vivid imagination. But the timing of the occurrences and the eeriness of the dream left a chill in my heart. Rajan's father cleared his throat. "We've considered medical help, but..." His voice trailed off, hinting at something deeper, something they weren't ready to face. Months turned into seasons, and as the leaves changed colors, so did the atmosphere at Rajan's house. Every time the calendar neared a no-moon night, there was a palpable tension in the air. As much as everyone tried to behave normally, the unease was evident. And I, though just a visitor, could feel it too. On one of my subsequent visits, Riya was up to her usual antics. She danced around the house, playfully hiding behind curtains and giggling at her own mischief. But as dusk settled and the sky turned ink black, signaling the onset, her energy waned. I could see Rajan's parents exchanging worried glances. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream echoed from inside the house. We rushed in, hearts pounding. There, in the dimly lit hallway, stood Riya. Her usually bright eyes were now glazed, staring off into the distance, her face contorted in fear. "She's sleepwalking," Rajan whispered, his voice shaky. But this was no ordinary sleepwalking. Riya began to murmur, her voice carrying a tone of desperation. "No, I won't go. I won't," she repeated, her voice rising with each declaration. Rajan and I tried to approach her, but she recoiled, her eyes wide with terror. It was clear she wasn't seeing us. Instead, she was lost in a horrifying dream, trapped in a realm we couldn't comprehend. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, she collapsed, her body limp. We carried her to her room, tucking her into bed. Rajan's mother, trembling, applied a cold compress to Riya's forehead, where the familiar mark had once again made its sinister appearance. The night gave way to dawn, and as the first rays of the sun crept into the room, Riya stirred. She woke up, dazed, her memory of the night's events hazy. All she could recollect was the shadowy figure and his relentless call. The family was at a loss. Doctors were baffled, attributing the occurrences to a rare sleep disorder. But the timing of the events and the consistent nature of the dream left everyone unnerved. Rajan and I spent countless hours researching, trying to find any precedent or explanation for what was happening. We stumbled upon old legends and tales that spoke of spiritual occurrences linked to lunar cycles, but nothing seemed to fit Riya's situation perfectly. One evening, as we sat dejected, an old neighbor, Mrs. Joshi, visited the family. Having overheard snippets of our conversation, she shared stories from her youth about similar events in their village. She spoke of a spiritual healer who had helped many. It might be worth a try, she suggested, leaving the family pondering their next move. We had reached a point of desperation. Every conventional path we had taken had led us to a dead end. But Mrs. Joshi's words lingered, offering a glimmer of hope. Rajan, with a mix of skepticism and desperation, started making inquiries about the spiritual healer Mrs. Joshi had mentioned. His name was Baba Prakash, a revered figure in a neighboring town known for his deep understanding of the spirit world. Word had it that he had dealt with cases similar to Riya's before, and though my scientific mind resisted the idea, Rajan's insistence and the urgency of the situation convinced me. We needed to meet this man. Upon reaching the modest abode of Baba Prakash, we were met with an air of serenity. It felt worlds away from the chaos we had left behind. The Baba sat cross-legged, his eyes closed, apparently lost in deep meditation. As we approached, he opened his eyes, nodding for us to sit. Before Rajan could speak, the Baba interrupted. "You seek answers for the girl with the mark," he said, his voice soft yet firm. The accuracy of his statement startled us, but he motioned for us to remain silent. He then took out an old leather-bound book, its pages yellowed with age. As he flipped through, he began to narrate tales of spirits trapped between worlds and of innocent souls caught in their web. The lunar cycle, he explained, held great power in the spirit realm, and it was during these periods that the barriers between our world and theirs were at their thinnest. Rajan, mustering the courage, finally spoke, detailing Riya's affliction. Baba Prakash listened intently, occasionally nodding. Once Rajan finished, the room was silent, save for the soft rustling of the trees outside. After what felt like hours, Baba Prakash finally spoke. "This is not the work of an ordinary spirit. This is something ancient, something strong, but it can be confronted." He detailed a ritual that had to be performed on the next moon's night. It required specific herbs and incantations, and most importantly, Riya's presence. He warned that it would be a battle of wills, and while he could guide and protect, ultimately, it was Riya's spirit that had to resist and reject the entity. The days leading up to the ritual were tense. Rajan's family prepared as instructed, gathering the herbs and setting up the space for the ritual. Riya, though weak, showed a resilience that surprised us all. She seemed determined to face whatever was tormenting her. The night of the ritual was upon us. The house, usually lively and warm, felt cold and foreboding. As we sat in a circle, with Riya at the center, Baba Prakash began chanting, his voice echoing in the stillness of the night. Time seemed to stretch endlessly. Suddenly, Riya's body began to convulse, her face contorted in pain. The entity, feeling threatened, was retaliating. But Baba Prakash's chants grew louder, more forceful. And then, in a climactic moment, Riya let out a gut-wrenching scream, collapsing into unconsciousness. The room fell silent. In the days that followed, a noticeable change had come over Riya. There were no signs of the ominous mark or the night terrors that once plagued her. We were cautiously optimistic, but I could sense Rajan's parents were still on edge. One evening, as we gathered for dinner, a knock on the door interrupted our meal. A frail, old woman stood on the threshold, her face etched with lines of age and her eyes gleaming with a strange mix of sorrow and determination. She introduced herself as Maya Gaita, a resident of the neighboring village. Rajan's parents, recognizing her, invited her in with a mix of respect and curiosity. Seated in the living room, Maya Gita began to speak, her voice quivering but firm. "I heard about what happened to young Riya," she began, "and I believe I owe you all an explanation. Years ago, Malagita revealed that the land on which the Sharma house now stood was a sacred grove, a haven for spirits passing through to the afterlife. At its center was a stone, which she described as a conduit between the realms. The stone ensured the spirits moved on, ensuring they didn't linger and disrupt the living world. But over time, as urbanization swept the area, the grove was destroyed, and the stone was lost. When the Sharmas had built their house, they unknowingly built it over the location where the stone had been buried. Riya, with her young, impressionable spirit, had inadvertently become a beacon for these trapped souls. The powerful entity that had tormented her was once a guardian of the stone, angry and vengeful over the desecration of his sacred duty. Rajan's family listened in stunned silence. The weight of the revelation was enormous. The question now was what could be done to set things right. Malagita had a solution. The stone must be unearthed and reinstated at a new sacred site, she said. Only then will balance be restored. With her guidance, a search began. Days turned into weeks, but their perseverance paid off when, one rainy afternoon, they uncovered a large, oddly shaped stone from the depths of the backyard. With Baba Prakash's assistance, a ritual was organized to transfer the stone's energy to a new site that Malagita had identified. A palpable shift in energy enveloped the area. The air felt lighter, the nights peaceful. Riya's affliction seemed to be a thing of the past. Gratitude and relief filled the Sharma household, but they knew they had a duty to protect and honor the new sacred site, ensuring that the mistakes of the past were not repeated. Malagita, having played her part, left as quietly as she had come. Months passed since Malagita's visit, and life began to find its rhythm once more. The Sharma household thrived with happiness, and Rajan and I continued with our college lives, though the events of that harrowing year always loomed large in our conversations. One day, as we were preparing for our final exams, Rajan pulled me aside, a somber expression on his face. "I think there's something you should see," he said, leading me to Riya's room. Puzzled, I followed. He pointed to a series of drawings Riya had made. To an outsider, they would seem like the innocent scribbles of a child, a house, trees, a smiling sun. But what caught my eye was the recurring figure of a tall, shadowy man standing at a distance, always watching. Rajan's voice trembled. She says he's her friend, that he's been there watching over her ever since that night. I examined the drawings closely. The figure, though faceless, bore a gentle aura, not the malevolent presence from her nightmares. Could it be the guardian of the stone? Had he returned, not in anger, but in gratitude? Or was he simply ensuring that the balance was maintained? With trepidation, we approached Riya. "Who's this?" I asked, pointing to the figure. Riya looked up, her face lighting up. "Oh, that's my friend. He says he's here to make sure I'm safe. He thanks us for helping him and the others." The realization was bittersweet. While the entity no longer harmed Riya, it seemed a part of him remained bound to her as a protector. With this knowledge, Rajan's family found solace. Rajan and I graduated that year, our friendship cemented by the trials we'd faced together. The bond between our families grew stronger, with a shared secret binding us. Years later, when Riya grew older and began college, the sightings of the shadowy figure reduced. Whether he moved on or simply faded into the background, we couldn't say. But the family was never troubled again. The experience, however, had forever altered their understanding of the world. For me, the story never really ended. Not all that is unseen is to be feared, and not all that we dismiss as myth is devoid of truth. The legacy of that year, the bond with Rajan, and the memories of the guardian spirit became a part of me. They reminded me always to respect the mysteries of the universe and to tread lightly. Every so often, when the wind rustles the leaves or a shadow flits in the corner of my eye, I pause and acknowledge the world beyond, ever present, ever watchful. Thanks for watching. If you have a story you want to share, make sure to let me know. And if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to the channel.